Good morning. Lexi Odds here. RaptorFreak. It's Wednesday. It's the first. No, it's the day off before we play Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow. 2 days off, so I'm going to go ahead and do the stream now. Just checking some things. I got in the right room. Yeah. Okay. All right. Today I wanted to let's do some house cleaning first. Okay, so tomorrow we're playing Oklahoma City Thunder. They played last night against Detroit Pistons. It was the battle of two teams with like losing streaks. So it was kind of important for these teams to win this game last night. And Detroit was really handling Oklahoma City pretty good last night for the most part, for most of the game. But then in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma City came back and they won the game in the fourth quarter. So OKC is coming off a win for tomorrow. They've been losing a lot of games, though, recently. Like, they lost twice in a row to Houston, and that's really bad because Houston for a long time only had one win, and now they've got, they're coming back. They're actually on a win streak right now, the Rockets, since only winning one game in, the first month or so. And Oklahoma City did it this way. They had their Canadian kids step up. Dort and SGA, they did really good job in the fourth quarter, scoring points and doing things like that. It's a weird game, that game last night, because Detroit really kind of beat them in all kinds of categories. And it was really that they just kind of turned it on and overwhelmed them at the end, SGA and Dort. And Detroit just doesn't have any real scorers or real guys that are real go-to guys. Cade Cunningham isn't there yet. And, the Thunder didn't play that well. And to tell you the truth, the Thunder are not looking that impressive on paper. They're a shorter team. They're younger. And I think that we're going to have a good time with them tomorrow. We should be able to beat them pretty good tomorrow night. Raptors versus Oklahoma City Thunder, Scotiabank Arena, Wednesday night. All right, so today I want to talk about a period in time in the Raptors' history that really sucked. Maybe it was the worst year ever, well, record-wise, in the history of the Raptors. And part of the reason why I want to talk about this period is because of what we've been going through with the team this year so far and last year even. Last year, to me, was kind of like the down year for the Raptors recently. The COVID year, we didn't have guys healthy. We didn't make the playoffs. It was kind of like a little ebb down flow in the badness of the Raptors. It was just that was a bad point. And now we're on our way back up. And there's been different periods of time in the Raptors history where it's been like this. And the very first time that it was like this was in our third season. In the 1997-98 season of the Raptors, we had just, I won't say anything about because I don't want to give any answers away, but we had just started our third year and we were just like the Houston Rockets this year. We only won one game in November and December pretty much. Actually, we won two games all of November and December that year. We were 2 and 20 by New Year's Eve. And that was really bad. And I remember that season kind of because I was in my last year at FSU, about to graduate with my BA, and I was really busy. So I couldn't pay that much attention to the Raptors, thankfully. And then I ended up graduating at the end of 98. And I moved to Toronto, back to Toronto. And that's when Vince Carter got drafted and he started his era here. So him and I both came up at the same time around that time and started working for the Raptors at the same time. So I want to talk about the year before that because there was a lot of tumultuous things that happened in that year. We had a coaching change right in the middle of the season because things were so bad. We fired Darryl Walker and we hired Butch Carter underneath him to become our new coach. Another thing that happened that season was we were still in the Skydome. And if you saw the picture for this stream this morning, you saw the kind of layout that we did with the bleachers in the middle of the field and the way that it was a really bad building for basketball. I went to some games at the Skydome for Raptor games, and it was just awful. The ceiling's way too high. It's just too airy and weird. You might as well be playing outside, honestly. And for some of those games, they probably had the roof open, and maybe they should have. But it's really hard for a basketball player to shoot against no backdrop, against no ceiling. You need that kind of stuff for perspective. So sometimes it can be really hard for a player to play in the Skydome because it's just so vacuumous. Just such a huge, massive arena with such a big, open, empty air. And we're only really using like maybe half of it or a quarter of it. So it was really kind of a bad place for basketball, for sure. We were really happy when the Air Canada Center opened up. And there were all kinds of great things that happened, like right when the Air Canada Center opened, like drafting Vince Carter. So the era was getting really good. The first 2 seasons of Raptors basketball, we did okay. Not really, though. I mean, we had like a 20-win season, but this was our worst season by far. And it sparked a huge trade right in the middle of the season and a firing of the coach. And it was our transition out of the Skydome. And thank God we played the last game of the season in the Maple Leaf Gardens. And then we never played in the Skydome again after that. And basically today, what I want to see, if I see that there's a couple people in here already, I want to see if people can remember who was on that team for that year. Like, who is responsible for that 16-win debacle, other than Darryl Walker and the GM at the time, Glenn Grunwald, and stuff like that? Who were the players that played on the 97-98 Toronto Raptors team responsible for our worst record ever? And I've got them listed. There's 25 names on this list because there was a lot of turnover. And so if you really know some deep cuts on this team, players that didn't play a whole lot of minutes, then you can get some major points, because number 1 on this list is just going to get you 1 point, because it's easy to remember the guys who played on this team a lot. And I am going to count strikes, but as we go, I'm going to give you guys clues maybe to help you with some of them, because there are some really deep cuts on this team that are really hard to remember. And some of us have blocked this stuff out because we don't want to remember because it was so bad. And I remember watching this season. It was just really frustrating. It was super frustrating. And, the Raptors just couldn't get anything going right. I remember this was also around the period of time where you could buy Raptors tickets at Shoppers Drug Mart. And I can remember going to the drugstore and, you'd be buying like toothpaste and floss and stuff like that. And you could buy the tickets from the lady at the Shoppers drugstore. That was so awesome, that period of time. All right, Kenny is here, and Kenny is playing. And you know what? Damon Stoudemire is on this list. He's number 3, Kenny. So you're going to get 3 points for that. Of course, our number 1 pick. Actually, that's a good clue. Our first 3 number 1 picks are on this list. If you can think of the guys that we drafted the first 3 seasons of Raptors basketball, you'll get them. You got our number 1 guy right there. That's number 3 on the list, so 3 points. G says Gary Trent, and I know he means Gary Trent Sr., and he's exactly right. Gary Trent Sr. was on this team. He didn't play a whole lot. And you know what? He was 13th on this list, G. So you're getting 13 points for getting Gary Trent Sr. All right, G says Tracy Mcgrady. Of course. What a horrible team to come into for Tracy. This was his rookie year. Tracy McGrady's rookie year for the Raptors was a disaster. They were still playing in the Skydome. They changed the coach halfway through the season. They had a huge trade where they switched everybody around for the first time in Raptors history. They had like a major trade that sent Damon Stoudemire somewhere. And if you can think about all the people that were involved in that trade, you can figure out some of the names that are still on this list. So we're going to give G Tracy McGrady. That's 7 more points, G. Yeah, Tracy was only 19, and it was awful for him. All right, Kenny. Kenny got the second year first-round pick, which was Marcus Camby, number 2 in the second year of the Raptors. And, yes, he's on this list. He's pretty high still. He's number 4, Kenny. But, yeah, you know what happened with Marcus after that year? In the next summer, we traded him for Oakley to New York Knicks. And we were setting up the next year so much better. We had Vince drafted. We were moving into the Air Canada Center. We had gotten Kevin Willis also and Charles Oakley coming into the season. So we had a lot of good things happening. All right, G, you got somebody who was also in the rookie season that year. Alvin Williams. We traded Alvin to get Alvin for Damon Stoudemire in his rookie season. Alvin was a rookie at that time. And the other thing about Alvin that year was he was hurt. He was hurt that season, a lot of that season. So he didn't really play a whole lot in this awful season. Like, I think if I look at his minutes, Alvin only played He only played 207 minutes. So we can't really blame Alvin for how bad that team was. So but he's on the list. You get 17 points for getting Alvin G. That's a big point total. Doug Christie, Kenny, you just got number one on the list. Doug Christie was the number one perpetrator of that awful season. He had 2,939 minutes that season. He played the most. So he's number one. Good job, Kenny. You got number one on the list. It's only 1 point, but you're getting these top ones that are really, really kind of easy. I love this. These are really bad Raptor names on here. Like we have a couple of guys who are original Raptors with Damon Stoudemire that were from the first team. So if you can remember those first teams, and who else was in that draft, that trade with Alvin and Damon? Think about that. There was a guy who was supposed to get traded here, but he refused to report. And this was another part of the whole crappiness of that year is we traded this guy for Damon Stoudemire, and he refused to come to Toronto. So we had to turn around and trade him to Boston really quick. So think about all that, all the different peoples that were factored into that. Oh, yeah. Let's see. I remember this guy that was with the team for so long, Sam. Sam is not one of the names on this list, but because you didn't really give me a full name, you're trying something out. I'm not going to give you a strike for that one. Okay, Kenny said Rod Strickland. That's actually going to be a strike, though, Kenny, because Rod Strickland was not one of the players. It's a similar guy to Rod Strickland. I know where you're going with this as New York point guard. You think it was Rod Strickland, but it's a different New York point guard. He actually married a star from the TV show MTV's Real World. He married a woman that was on the Real World, on the NBA, the guy I'm talking about, who got traded to us but wouldn't report. And then we had to turn around 5 days later and trade him to Boston for another guy who was a rookie who came here and played as a rookie point guard for our team from Boston. And he's now a coach on one of the NBA teams right now, this guy that I'm talking about right now. He's on this list. Let me start giving more clues so you guys can figure this out. All right, number 2 on this list for 2 points went to Syracuse. And he also played for the New York Knicks in his career. He's a really unsung kind of guy on the Raptors history, that he did play some really solid time for us. On this bad team, he played a lot beside Doug Christie. But he was somebody that was kind of a part of the history that could have been part of the future. But he really didn't turn into too much. Okay, Kenne's you're thinking of Sean. Yes, there is a Sean on this list. Kenne, D. Brown. Boom, that's a deep cut. Yes, D. Brown is on this list. He's going to get you 9 points, Kenne. Old Mr. Reebok Pump. Pump him up. Okay, Kenne, you get it. Chris Childs? No, I'm sorry. Chris Childs is a little bit later. I might, if you guys are the only ones playing, I might get the strikes out of here, because if we have nobody else guessing, I want you guys to get all the points here. So, no, Chris Childs is a good guess. He came later to the team when we were in the playoffs more. I think like maybe 2 or 3 years after this, he was on the team. But D. Brown was there for sure, and he was kind of an important guy. So this Syracuse guy, he was a small forward. He played for the Knicks before he came to us. And he was important Raptor for a little while. Like he was one of our go-to guys, really important small forward from Syracuse in his school. And I don't know if you guys will get this. We'll have to put a time limit on this. We'll see how many you guys can get from my clues by 10 o'clock. And if we don't get them all, that's fine. But these are points to be getting. All right, this next guy I'm going to describe for you, he got actually drafted in the expansion draft to the Vancouver Grizzlies. Okay, Kenny. But you do as well as you can. All right. Slater, oh crap, is his last name. Can you give me his first name? He was on the Vancouver Grizzlies, and then we ended up getting him to Toronto, and he was a power forward. I think I just said his name, but whatever. Okay, another one, original Raptor. His nickname was the same as Oscar Robertson's. So think about Oscar Robertson, the all-time great, what his nickname is. And then there's a guy who had his same nickname, but it fit in a different way for this guy than Oscar Robertson. And he's a very famous early Raptor, kind of like Charles Barkley in his game, because he was really big, like a really big guy that could actually play pretty good. Also, we got somebody who had the nickname of the team we just beat. Like his nickname was the name of the team we just beat on Sunday. Think about that. He was involved in the Stoudemire trade, and he ended up going to Portland from Toronto in that trade. And then we've got this big guy who was one of the original Raptors. He's European. He's a really famous, obscure Raptor name in the history of the names of the Raptors. If you can think of him, his first name starts with Z. You guys, the Sean one, he played for Michigan State. He was with Eric Snow, and they were called Fire and Ice when they were in university, if you can remember that. And then we got, two of the people on this list have nicknames from the cartoon Zan. Do you remember his last name, G? Zan. It's a tough one. He's like a deep cut because like he was one of our original centers from the very beginning, like in the first season of the Raptors. We got two guys on this list that have nicknames from a very famous cartoon movie that starred Robin Williams. And the main character is one of the names on this. It was a movie that was based on a cartoon character that was out to sea. And there's two characters from that movie that are actually nicknames of people that are on this list. One's the main character that Robin Williams played, and then the other one's like his child. So if you can remember those two nicknames, they'll give you two clues to two people that are on this list. T something. That's pretty close. It's Jean Tabak. Jean Tabak. I'm going to give you that one, G, just because you got Jean. That's pretty good. Jean Tabak. Come on. That's a hard name to remember. Okay, another guy on this list has the same last name as that guy who has a neighborhood with the children's show, and he was playing for Golden State, and then he became a original Raptor in the expansion draft, and then we ended up trading him with Damon Stoudemire to Portland to get Alvin Williams and the rest of the people we got in that deal also. So if you can think of who has a neighborhood in a children's show, it could probably figure out the last name. And then you could figure out the first name on that one. Another one here I've got is has the same exact name as the famous TV cowboy from way back in the day who rode the horse called Trigger. And he was drafted by the Vancouver Grizzlies in the expansion draft and ended up on our team also in the trade with Damon Stoudemire and all that. And then, some of these really hard ones, I'm not even going to try and figure out because there's 25 names on this list. But some of these guys only played like half an hour of minutes for the team in that season. I wanted to have different levels of possibility with how deep we could go with these trivia answers. And I just want to see how deep we could go with this. So first clue is Syracuse forward who played for New York Knicks and then came to Toronto and played for the Raptors for a few seasons. He was one of our most important scorers at that time. Also, somebody who, was good for the Raptors during this season, was one of the bright spots during the season. The rest of the year was really awful. It was a bad season this season. And then number 5 shares the same last name as AC on Saved by the Bell, and he's got the same first name as Mr. October from baseball. So you can figure it out from there. And then the next name, he has the same nickname as Oscar Robertson, and he's a big guy, and he played from the very beginning of the Raptors with the original team. He came in the expansion draft, I think, or he was one of our early signings. And then one of these guys is actually the coach of Portland right now. If you think about that, who's the coach of Portland? He was on our team this year that we were really bad. Got only 16 wins as the Raptors did in 1997-98 Raptors. That's who we're trying to name today. And then, like I said, one of these guys has the same nickname as the team we just beat on Sunday. So think about what team we just beat on Sunday and what their name is, and think about what player was named that. So Chauncey Billups, G, you're right. Chauncey Billups, coach of Portland, he is on this list. He's the one who got traded for the guy who didn't want to report to Toronto from Portland. There was a guy who got traded for Damon Stoudemire and came with Alvin Williams and was supposed to be the point guard we got. But he came here and he said, no, I'm not going to play for Toronto. And 5 days later, we had to trade him to Boston for Chauncey Billups. And Chauncey was a rookie that year too. Like, this is Chauncey's rookie season. He played half the season for Boston, and then he came to Toronto and played half of it for us. And he was part of that losing that year for sure. I don't know. All right, we got about 10 more minutes. I'll leave this open. I'll keep giving the clues. You guys think about this, and if you figure any of them out, let me know. So also, we got this guy he was from Georgia. He had a really bad car wreck, which ended his career. It messed his legs up. This is a really deep cut. If somebody gets this one, I'm going to be really impressed. Like this guy was a big center. He had a bald head, and he was fat. He was big, and he got in a bad car wreck in the South, and it messed his legs up, and he couldn't play anymore after that. It was really sad when that happened. And then we also got, like I said, the kid from there's a movie in the 80s that starred Robin Williams that was taken from a cartoon, and it's about a sailor. And his name is one of the names of the guys on this list. And the son of that sailor, that nickname is also a nickname of one of the guys on this list. So if you think about that movie with Robin Williams about a sailor in the 80s, you'll get a couple of these really easy. So those are pretty good clues right there. And then once again, I said, whoever's neighborhood, who has a show that says it's his neighborhood, think of that last name. And then think of like the guitar player who plays with Rob Thomas and plays Smooth, that song Smooth. And then you get that one. That's the first name and the last name on that one. Anybody can answer here. I mean, I know this is tough level. I went deeper with the toughness on the Raptors trivia today because I knew we may have some more players coming in, and I wanted to make it more challenging, but I'm just testing the different levels of challenging. So anybody who can name the people who played on the worst Raptors team ever, the 16-win Raptor team that played in 1997-98, the year before Vince Carter got drafted and came to Toronto, who was on this team? And so far, we've got Doug Christie, Damon Stoudemire, Marcus Camby, Tracy McGrady, Chauncey Billups, D. Brown, Jean Tabak, Gary Trent Sr., Alvin Williams. But there's more names on this list. More points to be gotten by anyone who wants to get them. The number 2 guy on this list went to Syracuse, played for the New York Knicks before he played for Toronto, and he was a small forward. He was a pretty good scorer. He did some good things. His initials are JW. Think about that. And then we got number 5 on the list. His first name is the same first name as Mr. October from baseball. His second name is the last name of AC on Saved by the Bell. And then we got a guy whose nickname is the Big O. Do you know who the Big O is? Not Oscar Robertson. It would be the other Big O, the one that played in the 90s. If you guys can remember who that was. He played for Phoenix also. And then we got the guy who has the same nickname as the team that we just played on Sunday from Washington. What is their team name? And what is the name of the guy who used that nickname in the 90s? This is deep stuff. I mean, I know I'm aging myself here. You know, I just said I graduated from university during this year of the Raptors history, and I was too busy studying. So thankfully, I couldn't watch a lot of this garbage that they were doing that year. Because really, I'm looking at what they did when they won their games. They didn't win a second game until they won their third game right before New Year's. So they were like, they were in their fourth game right before New Year's. So they were like 4-22 or something by New Year's Eve. It was really bad season, the worst season in Raptors history. That's why nobody can get this, because nobody wants to remember. Oh my gosh. All right, only 5 more minutes for points to be available for people to get right now. I really want to see if somebody can get this guy who refused to play for us. We traded Damon Stoudemire and a couple guys out to Portland for this guy and Alvin Williams and Gary Trent. And this guy said, no, I'm not going to play for Toronto. I'm not going to come to Toronto. He refused. So we had 5 days later, we had to turn around and trade him to Boston for Chauncey Billups. And that's how we got Chauncey Billups all of a sudden real quick, was we traded this veteran guy who played for New Jersey before Portland. And he ended up marrying a woman from the TV show MTV Real World. Like she was on the Real World San Francisco or something like that, or California or something. And she's actually on the new show that's coming out right now. There's a new Real World reunion show that she's on now. The woman, her name's Tammy. She married this guy who was an NBA player. But I can't, I can only give so many good clues. You know what? The Sean one, do you know the last name of the Sean guy, G? Because I'll give you that point if you can give me the last name of the guy who played for Michigan State, who was with Eric Snow. They were called Fire and Ice as a tag team on the court as a duo. They were Fire and Ice, and he was the fire part because Eric Snow was obviously the ice with his last name, Snow. These are tough. You know what? I'm going to just go down the list. This was a tough one. I mean, I really did put a tough one on here. All right, first of all, the player that got traded to Toronto in that trade for Damon Stoudemire that did not come here was Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson said, nope, I will not come to Toronto. So that was who married Tammy from the Real World. And then we got the guy who played for the Knicks, who played at Syracuse, who was one of our main scorers that year, was John Wallace. Oh, I'm a fun guy. All right, you listen, I'm a fun guy. The clue is, can you name who played the most minutes on the Toronto Raptors team that had the worst record ever? They had 16 wins. It was the 1997-98 Raptors. The year before Vince Carter got drafted and came to Toronto, the year before we went to the Air Canada Center and we were still playing in the Skydome. Who were the players that played the most minutes? Right now, so far, we got Doug Christie, Damon Stoudemire, Marcus Camby, Tracy McGrady, Chauncey Billups, D. Brown, Jean Tabak, Gary Trent Sr., and Alvin Williams. And I'm giving clues for some of them. And this first guy, I actually just named him, is I named John Wallace, so that one's out. Now, this next one has the same first name as Mr. October from baseball and the same last name as AC from Saved by the Bell. So my clues will give you better. No, Del wasn't there yet, so I can't say Del Curry. Whoa, naked online. Wow. Do you remember who had the nickname Big O other than Oscar Robertson? Because there was a guy who played for us that did. Let me get this person out of here. Hide this user. Yeah, okay, good. No Del Curry. He's too soon for Del Curry. He came a little bit later, but we got, let's see. Let's see. We also got, do you remember who was Fire and Ice with Eric Snow at Michigan State? He played for us that year too. Who the other player was. They got the first name. His first name was Sean, but they couldn't get his last name earlier. And then also two people on this list are characters from the Robin Williams comedy about a sailor in the 80s who's a cartoon character. The name of the character is one of the names on this list. And then the name of the child in that movie with Robin Williams from the 80s, where he's a sailor, live action, but it's a cartoon in the TV show. That's a really good clue right there. And then also got like, who has a neighborhood who has a kids show? And think about that last name. There's somebody on this list with that last name. Well, actually, there's two people on this list with that last name. And then we just beat the Washington team on Sunday. Their nickname is the nickname of a player on this list also. So there's a lot of points to be had, but we only got a couple more minutes, and I'm going to shut it down, and nobody else can get any more points. So go crazy, man. Just go crazy. Rogers, okay, G. But the first name is the first name of the guy who plays guitar with Rob Thomas on the song Smooth, if you know that song. Or Black Magic Woman. You know that song? Do you know the name of that guy? If you know his name, put it in front of Rogers, and you'll get an original Raptor that got traded to Portland with Damon Stoudemire to get Alvin Williams and Kenny Anderson. But yeah, Rogers. There's two Rogers on this list. One Rogers is the one I was just talking about. And then there's another Rogers on this list who used to ride a horse and was a cowboy on TV. And he had a woman named Dale with him. And I think his horse was named Trigger. He's on this list too, the namesake of that guy. And you know what? I'm just going to start naming them off the list. All right. Because this, you guys got a lot of the main ones. These ones that you guys didn't get are really tough ones, honestly. All right. So I said John Wallace. He's on here. Reggie Slater. Do you guys remember Reggie Slater? He was a power forward, big dude, could really move around down low. This is the one I was really hoping you guys would get. Oliver Miller. Do you guys remember Oliver Miller? That dude was a badass. He was so big and fat, and he could dunk, and he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. The nickname of the Wizards is the Wizards. So the Wizard is Walt Williams. Walt the Wizard Williams. You guys remember Walt Williams? He was traded with Damon to Portland to get that. Fire and Ice was Eric Snow and Sean Respert. I know Respert's a weird name. Yeah, we're going way back. This is tough, fun guy. This is advanced RaptorFreak Trivia. This is no joke. Okay, the guy who Robin Williams played in the movie was Popeye, right? So Popeye Jones, guys. Popeye Jones. You remember Popeye? And then we got the Rogers I'm talking about is Carlos Rogers. He was one of the original Raptors in the very beginning, and he was in that Portland trade going to Portland for Alvin and Kenny Anderson and Gary Trent Sr. There's a guy on this list. I wasn't even going to try because I don't even remember this guy, Chris Garner. Do you guys remember Chris Garner? No, because he was a rookie who tried out for the Raptors camp, and they had to use him for a while, and then they cut him. Oh, the movie Popeye? They have a movie, Popeye. It's a live action movie. It's about Popeye, the cartoon character, and Robin Williams plays him. And he has like big fat arms, just like the cartoon character. And there's Bluto and olive oil and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Popeye. Yeah, you got to see that movie. It's really good. Okay, fun guy. What was the name of the kid in the Popeye movie? If you can get that, you might be able to get one more name on this list before I name it. Because the nickname of that kid is the nickname of a player on this list, if you can remember that. All right, so another guy on this list is John Thomas. He was a rookie that year. I remember John Thomas. He was an okay kind of player, but he didn't really stick around. You guys probably wouldn't remember John Thomas. Then there's also Roy Rogers is the name I was looking for. Roy Rogers was the TV cowboy with the horse named Trigger and hanging out with Dale and stuff like that. There was a player who got in a car wreck, ended his career, Sharon Wright. Do you guys remember Sharon Wright? He was on this team. Then there's a couple of no-name guys that are kind of on here that you guys probably wouldn't remember. Tim Kempton, Ed Stokes, Bob McCann. So the one name that I haven't named yet is the child of Popeye was called Sweet Pea, that little baby. And Sweet Pea was Lloyd Daniels, the New York street baller legend. Lloyd Daniels, Sweet Pea Lloyd Daniels on the list. All right, so let me see. I'm going to add up what we got here. Kenny got 1, 3, 4, 9. So Kenny got 17 points today. G got 7, 8, 11, 13, and 17. So G definitely cleaned up. You got 41 plus 15. 56 points for G. Wow. Yeah, Sweet Pea. Yeah, Lloyd Daniels is he's a legend in New York, a big-time street ball legend. He actually had a lot of drug problems too, and he made it through. All right, so after that, G gets 56 points, and Ken A gets 17 points for today's trivia. I want to appreciate everybody coming. I know this was a hard one. I wanted to gauge how tough I could make this, but this may be way too far back and too in depth. But yeah, we were just taking a look at the worst season in Raptors history, 16 wins in the 97-98 season, their last season at Skydome with that horrible arrangement for seeding. And, you know, we switched coaches in the middle of the year where we fired Darrell Walker halfway through the season, and we hired Butch Carter up, and he became the head coach for the first couple of years that Vince Carter was the coach. Vince Carter came to the team, and we left the Skydome for good, came to the Air Canada Center, and we had just gotten Vince Carter, Charles Oakley, and Kevin Willis going into the new season. But yeah, Doug Christie, John Wallace, Damon Stoudemire, Marcus Camby, Reggie Slater, y'all are all responsible for our horrible record that year. It was really bad. 16 wins all season out of 82. That's really bad. I hated that season. I was glad I wasn't living in Toronto at that time. All right, y'all. Tomorrow, previewing the Thunder game. Thanks for being here and trying and playing with me here. This was a little tough. I'm gonna gauge how I do these in the future, like trying different levels of skill and hardness and stuff like that. Yeah, 16 wins all season. Just imagine how hard that season was to watch, man. Oh my God, it was the worst. It was the worst. Oh man, I'm so glad I was so busy with my senior finals in university that I didn't have that much time to dwell on how bad my Raptors were doing at the time. It was only their third season. I mean, come on. All right, everybody have a great Tuesday. Tomorrow, Thunder. Let's go Raptors. Yeah, baby. Woo!